I remember the pale glow of the TV in my office. That morning, as vividly as I recall the anxious look on Elizabeth's face. My younger sister, blonde hair still damp from a rushed shower, stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the bustling cityscape. Cars jammed the streets below, their headlights resembling scattered fireflies against the hard edges of skyscrapers. Across the room, a news ticker scrolled an ominous message along the bottom of the television screen. My attention flicked toward the broadcast, which showed a woman in a conservative blazer guiding a much younger girl, somewhere in her late 20s, into a courthouse. Dozens of cameras flashed, staccato bursts illuminating the gray facade behind them. A red banner reading, "Breaking news," fanned across the screen, underscoring the gravity of the moment. Executives are expected to take the stand in the coming days to testify about how the lender was allegedly defrauded out of $175 million by a 29-year-old entrepreneur, drawing fresh attention to how the biggest U.S. bank vets its acquisitions. My pulse thrummed at the mention of such an astronomical figure. Even in my circles where sums soared into the stratosphere, $175 million sounded like a jolt to the system. Another scandal, another meltdown splashed across Manhattan's front pages. This city never did small scale. "Rachel, you might want to turn that up," Elizabeth murmured, her gaze flicking between me and the TV. I snagged the remote from my desk, dialing up the volume. The camera panned to a throng of reporters huddled on the courthouse steps, microphones aimed expectantly at the thick oak doors. At a trial that starts this week in Manhattan, the reporter declared federal prosecutors will seek to prove that Jane Frank, founder of the financial planning startup Rank, and her chief growth officer, Liv Marks, engaged in fraud by hiring a data scientist to fabricate user accounts. They allegedly inflated their subscriber base to over 5 million, when the real figure was fewer than 500,000 for many. The biggest question remains: how could bankers Trust & Co. have missed the signs before acquiring Rank in 2021? The program cut to a studio panel, but I'd heard enough. My mind churned with questions. Another scheme exposed, another media maelstrom spotlighting deceit at the highest levels of finance. We were barely done reeling from the last fiasco, and yet here came another.
I hit the power button, plunging the screen into darkness. My reflection surfaced on the glossy surface, long dark hair pinned in a low chignon, shoulders tense beneath a tailored jacket. The city loomed behind me, a wall of steel and glass. Elizabeth shifted to face me, chewing her lower lip. Rank is what everyone's talking about right now. One more cautionary tale about illusions in the tech world. She tugged on the lapel of her blazer, and I noticed for the first time that she was wearing battered sneakers with her otherwise polished outfit. "Don't tell me you're pitching your next great invention in those shoes," I teased. She shrugged, not quite smiling. "Bigger battles to fight than footwear, right?" Her eyes flicked toward the door, as if expecting someone. Amara, my assistant, was nowhere in sight, leaving the corridor silent, except for the distant hum of ringing telephones. Elizabeth turned back to me with a sudden burst of energy. "I have a concept. Something that actually helps people, instead of scamming investors or padding some corporate giant's bottom line." My shoulders relaxed a fraction. "Go on." She took a moment to gather her thoughts. "I'm developing an app, one that connects women with the resources they need. Legal assistance, shelter referrals, career counseling, mental health support. It's designed to be anonymous, decentralized, and extremely secure." She was pacing now, her voice gathering momentum. I set a silver letter opener on my desk, a relic from my father, which I sometimes fiddled with when my thoughts drifted into complicated territory. "And you think you can launch this alone?" I asked, half skeptical, half intrigued. Elizabeth snorted softly. "Hardly. I have a small team, coders, activists, and a retired detective. One of my key collaborators is a tech logistic analyst named Sam Koto, but everyone calls her Sam. She's the granddaughter of Gloria. Remember, the former policy advisor who championed domestic violence reforms in the 90s. Sam's inherited her grandmother's sense of justice, but she pairs it with cutting-edge tech expertise. Han Leo Mired to dekada braken onen. Gymnosen full of hadage. She just harborately the sangao. She could dissipate together. The cat said, everyone conceive it. Come decision court gather. For broading quarterhine trying to heap sikadakine. From definite with my minded and is bold. Ting knows him it's seen, and the four free dollars is the paplum as mind. That she were treated.
The name triggered a faint recollection. Gloria Koto had been an icon in certain philanthropic circles, working tirelessly for legislation that protected vulnerable women. Yes, I remember Gloria from old galley events. She was a force of nature. Elizabeth nodded. Sam is determined to carry on that legacy, but with modern tools, logistics, digital security, anonymized data flows, she's the real brains behind the decentralized structure I'm building. But for us to scale up, I need more resources and strong legal protections. That's why I came here. I want to do this right, and I know you can help me navigate the potential landmines. I leaned back, pressing the letter opener lightly against my temple as I considered her words. On its surface, the plan sounded noble. Exactly the sort of project that would have our mother smiling proudly from some angelic vantage point. But I'd lived in this city's treacherous underbelly long enough to recognize a brutal reality. Good intentions often lure predators. Setting the letter opener aside, I fixed Elizabeth with a level stare. What exactly are you asking for? Funding, legal counsel, or my personal brand of cunning? She hesitated, then met my gaze. All of it. Actually, I want to keep everything secure, from user identities to the volunteer lawyers who might receive threats for their work. Sam is brilliant, but she's also an idealist. If we just rely on her caution, we could miss how ruthless certain people can be. My lips tightened, memories of old business entanglements flickered through my mind. Boardroom feuds, strategic sabotage, whispered threats if I didn't toe the line. You're probably right. This city loves a good underdog narrative, until it decides to shred them for sport. She exhaled. That's why I need your savvy look. Sam's building out the decentralized nodes, setting up the secure architecture, all of that. But we still need a fortress of support. I'm not naive enough to think an app that helps women escape hostile situations won't paint a target on our backs. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the desk. The display lit up with a single name, Dietrich. Just seeing those 8 letters made my chest feel tighter. Dietrich Port, my closest friend since boarding school, once at the helm of $1 billion fund. Now, in the aftermath of that mysterious liquidation, we were still close, but something had changed.
I flipped the phone face down, ignoring the call. Then I glanced at Elizabeth, her eyes steady on me. All right, I said, I'll help set you up with the protections you need. But in exchange, I want full transparency on everything. If I see one sign of trouble that you or Sam can't handle, I pull the plug. She gulped but resolved quickly, deal. I was about to say more when Amara tapped on the glass door. Miss Woods, Mr. Port is here. Elizabeth's gaze darted to me, her posture stiffening. You want me to leave? I want you to meet him, I corrected. Let's see if Dietrich can offer his expertise and maybe bring on some of his own security team. I paused. I just hope Sam is flexible. If we do this, we'll want outside pen testers, third-party audits, all of it. Elizabeth nodded, though a flicker of tension crossed her face. Sam will adapt. She might gripe about it, but she'll see the logic. A moment later, Dietrich Port appeared in the doorway, as impeccably dressed as ever in a gray suit that seemed tailored to emphasize his lean figure. He offered Elizabeth a polite nod, then looked back at me. "Rachel," he greeted with his usual quiet confidence. "Glad you made time. The news about Rank is everywhere. Quite a scandal." I gestured to the upholstered chair near my desk. "Dietrich, you remember Elizabeth? She's got an ambitious project that needs some heavy-duty safeguards." He glanced her way. "Heard you've been brainstorming a new app for women's rights or protection." "Yes," Elizabeth inhaled, then explained. "It's a decentralized platform connecting women in need with legal aid, shelters, and career advice. My main developer, Sam Kodo, has the technical expertise to build out the architecture. But we need more than just code. We need insulation from the kind of sharks who'd love to hijack or sabotage this." Dietrich listened with an impassive face, arms folded. "I won't sugarcoat it. This will draw attention from all sorts of corners, corporate, political, possibly criminal. You'd better have top-tier encryption and an army of lawyers." He paused and looked at me. "And does your sister realize how quickly philanthropic ventures can be leveraged for a PR spin by the powerful?" Elizabeth stiffened, but answered, "Yes, I do, Sam, and I want to protect the community we serve, not become pawns in someone else's game." He nodded, eyes flicking back to me. "We can set up a separate entity, an LLC perhaps, to manage liability. Get an NDA for anyone who touches the code."
If Sam is as sharp as you claim, we'll lean on her for tech specifics, but we'll also need to run background checks across the board. Elizabeth's posture eased somewhat, though her voice still trembled around the edges. "I'm okay with that. Whatever keeps people safe." Dietrich gave a measured nod. "All right, let's discuss details soon." He flicked his gaze toward me. "But first, Rachel, can we speak privately?" Elizabeth shifted her weight from foot to foot. Uncertainty clear on her face, I waved a hand gently. "It's fine, Liz. Go over the schedule with Amara and look for potential times we can introduce Sam into the conversation. We want her input on the technical architecture." She hesitated, lips parted, but thought better of it and left the room once she was gone. Dietrich shut the door quietly. Then he turned to me, arms still folded over his chest. "You realize the risk here," he began. "If Sam is forging a new path with this decentralized approach, it's going to attract the kind of scrutiny I'm not sure you want. And with Rank making headlines, the feds are paying extra attention to any major tech or financial deals." I nodded, swallowing. "I know. But Elizabeth is serious. And from what I've heard about Sam, this isn't just some flight of fancy. It has real potential to do good." Dietrich inhaled as though weighing the pros and cons. "I'm also juggling an angle with James Price. He's pushing for my involvement in a new venture, one that might conflict with the philanthropic spin of your sister's app." I stiffened at the mention of James Price, son of Senator Price, a man known for wielding political clout like a personal weapon. "I assume you mean the biotech lobbying scheme?" He nodded. "Yes, if I spread my resources too thin, or attach my name to a project that certain circles find threatening, I could lose leverage with them. That might cause complications down the line." I pressed my lips together. "And how does that factor into your decision to help Elizabeth and Sam?" A half smile played on Dietrich's lips. "It doesn't mean I won't help. But I want you to know the stakes. We'll face pushback, possibly more than either of you anticipate." I exhaled slowly, fiddling with the letter opener on the desk.
I expected nothing less. A moment of silence passed between us. Despite the underlying tension, there remained a bedrock of trust forged through years of friendship. From the days we ruled the halls of an exclusive boarding school to the high-stakes world of finance, we'd later conquered.
All right, he said at last. We'll orchestrate this carefully. I'll bring in a small circle, lawyers, security pros, maybe some ex-intelligence folks to test Sam's system. If everything checks out, we move forward. But if we see red flags, I nodded, we pull the plug. He opened the door, leading us back into the corridor. Elizabeth hovered by the reception desk, flipping through documents with Amara. She looked up quickly, worry etched across her features. I motioned for her to join us, stepping into the hallway's quiet hush. So, Elizabeth asked, glancing from me to Dietrich. Dietrich's tone remained cool but not unkind. We'll draft some preliminary agreements. Once Sam is ready, we'll have a thorough review of the app's architecture. If it all lines up, we'll proceed, but we do it with ironclad protections. Relief visibly washed over Elizabeth. Thank you, both of you. Don't think us just yet, Dietrich responded. The real fight is ahead. She held her phone in a white-knuckled grip. Sam's been running test scenarios all morning. I'll have her compile an overview of the logistics plan and code framework by tomorrow. Tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, she added, we need to ensure no one can hijack the data. Some of the women using this system might be fleeing dire circumstances. I cut in, voice hushed. Elizabeth, just remember. The instant word gets out about an anonymous resource for vulnerable women, the app could attract the wrong kind of attention, hackers, exploiters, even political figures who see it as a threat to the status quo. She squared her shoulders. Sam is anticipating that, she says. If it doesn't threaten something, it's probably not worth doing. A faint smile ghosted across my lips. Sounds like she has glorious spirit in her. Elizabeth's eyes gleamed. She does. Dietrich exchanged a glance with me, one that said we'd both seen plenty of promising ventures destroyed by greed or fear. But Elizabeth's determination burned bright enough to give me a flicker of hope. All right, Dietrich said briskly, shifting the conversation back to logistics. Let's schedule a formal sit-down soon. For now, watch how the rank trial unfolds. It might highlight pitfalls we need to avoid.
I walked with them to my office door, tension simmering in my gut. On the television, Jane Frank's downfall had played out like a cautionary spectacle, reminding everyone just how merciless Manhattan's financial circles could be toward those who misrepresent facts. Even if we all knew the line between illusions and reality could be razor thin in certain deals. We were about to launch an app into that same environment, albeit for a benevolent cause. The question was whether good intentions and a brilliant logistic analyst, like Sam, would be enough to fortify us against a world that prized power above all else. Elizabeth tucked her phone into her pocket. I need to head out. Sam's waiting at the co-working space, ready to finalize some encryption protocols. If you get me those meeting dates, I'll set something up with her ASAP. I nodded. We will, and Elizabeth, be careful. Her brow creased. Always. She left, and Dietrich gave me a small, tired smile before turning to go as well. A coil of anxiety wound tighter in my chest. I closed the door, letting my gaze wander to the black mirror of the TV screen again, recalling the earlier broadcast about rank. I settled behind my desk, the city's imposing skyline pressing in from outside. Dawn had long since faded, leaving the morning sun suspended in a bleak sky. Sitting in my fortress of glass and steel, I thought of Elizabeth and Sam forging an idealistic project in an arena full of predators. I thought of Dietrich's balancing political alliances like a high-wire act. I thought of James Price, whose ambition might threaten to overshadow everything if it suited his agenda.
For a moment, I picked up the letter opener and turned it over in my hand, the cold metal reassuring me that for now I still had the power to influence the shape of things. But the world had ways of snatching away even the sharpest tools. That was always the game. Illusions, truths, alliances, betrayals. Through it all, Elizabeth's conviction and Sam's unwavering resolve might stand out as rare beacons in the swirling maelstrom of greed and ambition. Whether we could keep those lights burning was another matter altogether. I laid down the letter opener with a soft tap. Then I pressed the button on my desk phone to call Amara. "Let's get those meetings scheduled," I said, forcing a composure I didn't quite feel. "I want Sam brought in as soon as possible." Amara's voice crackled on the line. "Right away, Miss Woods."